Baby boomers are retiring in massive numbers. And are they retiring from something or are they retiring to something? My guest this week is Dr. Sarah E. Brown. Sarah retired as managing director for Accenture and is now as busy as ever with her new business, The Book of You. She helps individuals understand their unique personality and what they can do with that knowledge to be happy, successful, and understood at work and in key relationships. She has a PhD in psychoeducational processes, which is a combination of group psychology and adult learning. Welcome, Sarah. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Bill. It's a pleasure to be here.
Indeed. So, why did you retire and then start a business? Tell me about that.
Well, Bill, I saw a problem that I really wanted to address. So many of my clients were in the wrong jobs, and they were miserable. But when I would ask them what it was they wanted to be happy, they couldn't answer the question. And I really wanted to address that issue.
Most people never realized that they had a choice.
But you do. And I really wanted to help these clients and many others who are in the same boat understand what it is that would make them happy and successful. So I started the Book of You to help people understand their unique personality and what they can do with that knowledge to be happy, successful, and understood at work and in key relationships.
And so, did you go through this process?
I did. Actually, to be authentic, I had to go through this process and understand what my unique personality was, what my interests, my strengths, and my needs were, and the kind of work that would actually light me up. And I realized that what was unique for me, something I actually knew when I was in college, was that I was uniquely suited for research, for teaching, and for writing. And so I applied that to this problem that I was telling you about. And I am now doing research, and I am writing books, and helping people by teaching them to understand their unique personality and what they too can do with it to be happy, successful, and understood.
So how would all this apply to boomers, particularly boomer women?
Well, you know, every single day, 10,000 baby boomers are reaching age 65 and theoretically can retire. But unlike previous generations, they're finding they're going to live a lot longer. Some of them are looking at lifespans of 35 to 40 years at the time they retire. And they're realizing that their life savings may not be enough. So they're going to have to do something to generate some supplemental income. And the question is what are they going to do? And are they going to do something that they're really going to enjoy? And there's another problem. When we survey upcoming retirees, only 21% think that life is going to be better after they retire. And when we survey retirees, many, many, many are reporting that they're not very happy.
Well, if you haven't saved enough and you don't know what you're going to do when you stop drawing a paycheck, how happy or content could you be?
Well, that's part of the problem. Part of the problem is the supplemental income. But the other part of the problem is doing something that generates that income that actually brings you joy.
Well, people who are either retiring or perhaps still in their careers that aren't doing something that's fulfilling, again, may have taken what was available as opposed to what they wanted. There's an awful lot of people who approach life that way.
And retirement is the perfect opportunity to reverse that. And to actually go after something that is going to light you up and bring you joy and be a gift to others at the same time. And that's why I think that understanding your unique personality, which is actually your gifts to the world, is a perfect thing for boomers to do as they embark on retirement.
I've been a member of an executive networking group in the Philadelphia area for almost a decade, and I've met a lot of men and women in their 50s and 60s who retired involuntarily, particularly in 08, 09, 2010, and had no idea what to do with themselves.
And that transition is the perfect opportunity to examine what you can do going forward. You may find, just like I did, I knew innately in my 20s what it was I was set out to do, and I didn't do it. I did what you described. I went after the high-paying jobs. I went after what I thought was the right course of action, but I was really going away from my passions and going away from my innate talents. And that situation you just described is the perfect opportunity to step back and say, what is it about me that I can actually work on right now that will bring me joy and that supplemental income I need at the same time?
Well, there's shades of gray, not black and white in life, but I can think of a couple of examples where, one, you have an executive that perhaps had children later in life and still have college to pay for and may not have had a great severance package. They're a little bit more desperate to just get a job. And then you have the others who perhaps the kids are gone and on their own, who did get a nice severance package. Maybe they voluntarily took it, and now they have a nice runway to be able to do all this. Now, you left your job and your career voluntarily to do this, correct?
I did. And I did a lot of self-examination in the process of doing that. Regardless of where you are in the spectrum you just described, you can use that opportunity to look at who you are and start moving in the direction that will bring you joy.
So give me a little bit of an idea how this conversation then segues into the book of you.
Well, it's important to understand what components of your personality are important to understand. There are three components that I deal with: your interests, your strengths, and your motivational needs. The easiest one to understand is your interests. This is not big causes. It's not like the problem I described. I wanted to help women and my clients understand what was important to them, their unique personality, and what they could do with it. But these are really the day-to-day activities that we enjoy doing. For me, it was doing research, it was doing writing, it was doing teaching. Those are the day-to-day activities that I really enjoy doing. And that's the first component of understanding our unique personality. This is the component that most people have a pretty good handle on. Not all, but a lot. And you can get a pretty good idea of it by just sitting down and listing down one side of a piece of paper all of the things that you love to do, and listing down on the other side of the paper all of the things that you hate to do, and then prioritizing those in the top 5 on each side.
That's a good approach, because most people are really clear about what they don't want.
Correct.
But often don't know what they do want.
Correct. And as you're looking at how you deal with your personality interests, you want to find vocations and things to do that minimize the things on the I hate to do side of the column and maximize the amount of time on the I love to do side of the column.
Yeah. Most people don't think that they could actually make money doing the things they love to do.
Well, it takes a little bit of creativity, but you can. Let's take, for example, people who love to be outside. Love outdoor activities. It doesn't take a whole lot of stretch to figure out if we carve out jobs that allow people to get outside, they're going to be happier than if they're inside all the time. So you just work on getting more and more outdoor time into your job. That could be doing a lot of driving. It could be doing a lot of walking in what you're doing, but just maximizing the amount of time that you're outside.
So tell me more about the process.
Well, the first step of the process is to get clear about what your interests are. The second step is to get clear about what your strengths are. Strengths are the behaviors that you have learned as a way to be successful. I often give an example, and they tend to be on a spectrum. So they're no good or right or wrong answers. They're just a spectrum of behaviors. I often give an example of the difference between Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock. Captain Kirk is empathetic, can talk with anybody, and is warm and friendly. Mr. Spock is very matter of fact. Neither is right or wrong, but where you fall on that spectrum is going to dictate the kind of job that is appropriate for you, because strengths are only good in certain situations. So, for example, I would want Mr. Spock on a problem that required quick thinking, analytical thinking, when the Starship Enterprise is in trouble, for example. But I don't want him taking a customer service call. I want Captain Kirk to do that.
So when you talk about what people are good at, you're talking about strengths, but strengths could be personality. They could also be skills.
Yes, yes, and often the skills stem from your strengths and from your interests. Because you're naturally good at something, and because you like that, an area as an interest, you will spend time on it and develop the skills.
Okay.
So skills happen to be something that you have honed over a period of time. It goes back to the Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours to be really good at something.
Okay, good. So we're going to take a break for a word from our sponsors, and then we're going to come back and talk about the third component of the Book of You. This is Bill Borton. I'm here with Dr. Sarah Brown. We'll be back with more Live Better Longer in a moment.
I'm pearly white, love yourself, love your style, pearly white, love your smile.
For independent living for seniors age 62 and over, People Inc. offers safe, maintenance-free apartments across Western New York. The affordable rent is income-based. For more information, call People Inc. Senior Living at 817-9090.
In a world where bankers have lost all interest, where robots and fat cats rule our fortunes, one woman will stand up and strive to do the impossible. Be treated like
This is Bill Borton. Welcome back to Live Better Longer. I'm here with my guest, Dr. Sarah Brown. So Sarah, give me a couple of examples, if you would, about how people have put their skills and their strengths and their interests together and actually done what you've been talking about.
Okay. I actually have written a book that has some case studies on how people have actually discovered their interests, their strengths, and their motivational needs. And I tell in this book a story about Leanne Hansen. Leanne Hansen was an Emmy and Peabody award-winning anchor on NPR. She actually grew Weekend Edition at an astronomical rate before she retired. And she tells the story about how she always knew what her interests were. And when she retired, she decided that what she was going to do was to follow her bliss. And so she took every single one of her interests and she just started acting on it and figured out how she could make the supplemental income that she needed out of that interest. So the first thing that she did was she had an outdoor interest and she really loved to be at the beach or the shore. So she moved to the beach. And then she got involved in the performing arts, which was something that she really had an interest and a passion for. But she had a hard time figuring out how to make money in the performing arts because in community theater, there's not a whole lot of money.
Especially if you're at the beach and it's seasonal.
Correct. But she was able to parlay that into doing tour directions and living in character and helping people to understand what is going on in a community. And she also had a passion around fine food. So she turned the performing arts and the fascination with fine food into hostessing at high-end restaurants and has been able to follow her bliss in a whole host of different areas and to make that supplemental income that she needed. So that's one example.
Okay.
Another example is a story I tell about Sue Horty. Sue did not know exactly what her interests were, but she had a really good idea of what her strengths were. So before she retired, she used her leisure time to explore her interests using her strengths to figure out what to do with it. So she had this vague idea that it had something to do with actual fine arts, painting and the like. And she started to take classes in that and started to use strengths and skills, to your point, that she'd learned in her sales profession to refine where she could actually find her niche in the fine arts area and how she would go about selling and marketing it. So she used her strengths to leverage and better understand where her niche was going to be in her interest area. And she is now an abstract fine arts painter and is traveling around the Mid-Atlantic area selling her paintings and also going to juried shows. So,
Interesting. So those are two really good examples. So now before you gave those examples, we were talking about the three pieces of the puzzle or the process. Tell me about the third.
Now, the third one is probably the most important and also the hardest to understand. These are your motivational needs. Motivational needs are the things that you need to have in place in order to stay out of stress yourself. So if your motivational needs are not being met, you by definition are not going to be happy. If your motivational needs are not being met, you're not going to be able to use your strength behaviors to be successful. If your motivational needs are not being met, you are likely to demonstrate stress behavior, which by any definition is going to be a derailer. It's not going to be pleasant for you. It's not going to be pleasant for others. And stress behavior is the kind of behavior that you come to associate with anybody who is in stress, who is just uptight, things aren't going right, they're yelling, they're screaming, they're jittery, they're not focused, whatever it is, that's what stress behavior is, and it typically comes from your motivational needs not being met. So let me give you an example of a motivational need. Everybody falls somewhere on the continuum between waiting and rushing and waiting. It has to do with the pace of activity that is comfortable for you and how you choose to use time. I happen to be somebody that is most comfortable when I can get things done ahead of time at my own pace and have lots of leisure before the end. So, for example, I was here quite early before we actually were scheduled for an interview because I am not good at dealing with last-minute problems. I'm not good with last-minute traffic, for example. But there are people at the other end of the spectrum, people who are really, really comfortable with waiting and rushing. And there are corporations that have cultures that are at one end of the extreme or the other. For example, Accenture, the company that I worked for, it had a culture around waiting and rushing. Really, really good at doing things at the last minute. When we're getting ready for a big client engagement, it would often be done the day before or the night before.
Well, that was because you were the consulting firm, they were the client. You know, you couldn't control their behaviors.
Well, true, but even when there was a choice, the environment was such that there was a lot that was typically done. The RFP process is another example that it just lends itself to the wait and rush process. So there was a whole culture in Accenture around waiting and rushing. That doesn't play to my motivational needs. It actually creates stress for me. So it is really important to understand what those motivational needs are for you. And they're the hardest thing to figure out on your own because right off the bat, I couldn't ask you what they are. They only tend to appear when you're in stress or you take a really good assessment.
Well, we never tend to be very objective about ourselves. And so it's helpful to work with a coach or with some unemotionally involved third party.
And that's why the Book of You is uniquely helpful. Is not only does it help to pinpoint interests and strengths, some of which we know better than others, but it is also uniquely situated to help people understand those motivational needs, those things that need to be in place that will keep them out of stress.
Okay, so now in the time we have left, tell me about the Book of You and how our viewers find the Book of You, and then what happens next?
Okay. You can get a Book of You by going to bookofyou.com. When you order it, you will be given a link, a personalized link, to take a world-renowned personality assessment. It's called the Berkman Method. It's been used in corporations for over 60 years and by 3 million people. Once I get the data back from that, I'm able to generate a book just for the individual with information unique to that individual and specific guidance for that individual in a whole host of situations.
Now, this is really
like
personalized. This isn't just some algorithm-driven, template-driven book. This is specific to the individual.
Every book is unique to the reader who gets it.
That's a tremendous value.
It is. It is. And it is uniquely addressed to help, as I told you, my clients, the kind of people who were in jobs and they were miserable, but they couldn't describe what they needed, but also for baby boomers who are looking for, what am I going to do in my retirement years? What am I going to do in the 35 to 40 years I have left? That's longer than the careers of most of their parents. What am I going to do that's going to bring me joy, that's going to, as Leanne said, help me follow my bliss and be a gift to others as well?
Now, I may not be a genius, but I happen to know that this is not a link on a website. This is an actual book or a gift box that looks like a book.
Exactly.
And I guess these other books that you showed come inside of here. Tell me about this, and is it possible for people to get this?
It is. It is. This is a gift box that will contain my book that has case studies and the concepts, and a unique code that enables a reader to get their own unique Book of You. Then when they get the Book of You, which will be unique to them, it will all fit neatly in the gift box and they can put it on their shelf.
Very nice. And so you mentioned gift box, and so this is something that parents or grandparents can buy for a college graduate.
And they can go through the process with them.
Or someone who's retiring, if the people in the office want to know what to get them. So there's all sorts of creative ways that people could decide that this gift could make sense and really help somebody's life improve.
I hadn't thought about it until you just said this, but retirement is a kind of graduation.
It is.
It is. And so this would be the perfect graduation gift as people are beginning to look at what their next journey is going to be.
Indeed. Well, this is a really unique idea, and I'm hoping that more and more people who could put this in their stores get the idea that this might be something that could add value and provide them with some brand distinction. So we'll see. Who knows, maybe Amazon or Barnes & Noble at some point.
Wouldn't that be great?
Wouldn't it be?
Yeah.
So, terrific. So in the last few moments, people can reach you if they would like to speak to you about getting a hold of these for their store, or wanted to get the Book of You and they want to talk to you or ask questions. Can they contact you through bookofyou.com?
Yes, they can. Or you can just send me an email at sarah@bookofyou.com. But there are plenty of information links and ways to contact me on the website.
And I'm sure you've spoken to many individuals through your process of developing all this who have been going through this either voluntarily or involuntarily, and you've really gotten a lot of insights and made a lot of new contacts that way.
I have. And it's a true joy. Do I have time for another story?
I think so.
Well, there's a story about Kathy. Kathy was one of the involuntary ones. She was thrust into retirement much sooner than she had planned. And she could not quit work, but she was at a loss as to what to do. And she worked through this process for herself and with me, actually. And she discovered that she was never going to be happy in a corporate job. She was the perfect profile for an entrepreneur. And she has carved out 2 businesses that allows her to be outside and to be on her own and dictating her own schedule, and is as happy as a clam right now and is earning the money that she needs as that supplemental income.
What a really freeing thing to do.
Isn't it?
I started W.R. Borton and Associates 7 years ago when I'd had enough of corporate. After the economy changed and healthcare reform made the employee benefits space not fun anymore, I looked around at my strengths and my interests as well as trends and saw that I could help baby boomers with retirement risk management. And so there's all kinds of ways of getting there from here, but the Book of You, I think, is really innovative and really creative. And I know you've put a lot of time and research into it.
I have, but it is true joy, and I hope it will be a joy to others as well.
Well, good. Well, Sarah, I want to thank you for being on the show. It's been a pleasure. And I know that many of our viewers are going to want to learn more about the Book of You. And so please don't hesitate to go to bookofyou.com and reach out to Sarah. I know she'd love to hear from you. This is Bill Borton. Thank you for watching Live Better Longer. I'll look forward to seeing you again next Tuesday at 11 for another show here at RVN TV. Thank you.